Hello and welcome to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, where Tennessee just fell to Florida 29-16. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor. We're with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. And a bit of a sobering loss for Tennessee tonight. Felt like the year that Tennessee was finally going to come into the swamp and get that elusive win for the first time since 2003. But that's not how it went down. We're going to jump into it immediately on what went wrong, essentially. On offense, what was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I would have to say it's that start for Tennessee. You know, it was really this year kind of gave you flashbacks to last season, the way they were able to run the ball efficiently, got down the field 71 yards in 2 minutes. Defense helped set that up with a blocked field goal on what looked like a really promising Florida drive to start out. And again, Tennessee moved the ball quickly, the way we kind of expected them to. Get Squirrel White involved with a deep ball downfield. He's streaking right down this sideline, wide open. You cap the drive the next play with an 11-yard pass to Ramel Keaton, and then you're up 7-0 on the road in a really tough environment in a game, like you said, that means a lot emotionally for Tennessee. Felt like a statement drive, and it fizzled out from there. It just felt like they weren't able to recapture that. And I know a lot of that had to do with penalties and things like that just kind of set them back. And they just weren't able to play, their game, and like they did against Florida last year, and a lot of teams last season. But I would say the most disappointing thing was to have that kind of start, to see that after the first 2 weeks where the offense wasn't necessarily clicking early, you come out, you seem to kind of put those problems behind you, and then they just reverted back to it the rest of the way, particularly in that first half. I think they got it going a little bit better in the second half, but that first half really set the tone for the game, but they weren't able to recover from that.
Yeah, it felt like Tennessee was kind of going to get off to that hot start and be able to keep that rolling throughout the game, and kind of felt like the shift in momentum was going to go a long way, but ultimately it didn't. Florida bounces back very quickly, shuts down Tennessee on offense. You never saw them kind of return to that form until maybe the second half. But a big reason for that was those pre-snap penalties that you mentioned, false starts, and you asked them about the crowd noise, and they said it's not necessarily because of the crowd noise. They weren't willing to attribute it to that. So whatever the reason was, though, it's not something that can happen. You can't get yourself behind the sticks. That's a big reason that I think the offense wasn't able to get its footing tonight, is it kind of kept, I think Joe Milton used the phrase, shooting themselves in the foot, and was doing it to themselves. And you're not going to be able to get things rolling when you're 1st and 15, and then you maybe pick up 5, but then you hold, and now you have 2nd and 20. Those situations are going to make it very tough on yourself, and we saw that tonight. On the defensive end, it was another situation where Tennessee hurt itself. They said that, Aaron Beasley said, Florida didn't do anything we didn't expect them to do. We just didn't make the plays, is really what it came down to. And a big part of that was tackling. You think about Kamal Haddon just not wrapping up Trevor Etienne, and next thing you know, he's got a 60-plus yard touchdown, and this game should have been tied up. A missed extra point keeps it 7-6, but that was that first response. And those easy scores can't happen. You saw it throughout the game. Even when they didn't necessarily find the end zone, they were busting it down the field because Tennessee just kind of wasn't being fundamental at times, it felt like, on defense, and that kind of came out in the tackling. But what was your biggest takeaway on the defensive end?
Yeah, I mean, if there is something positive you can take from this game, they appeared to be a little bit more settled in that second half. Again, it was, the most disappointing thing coming off what you just said was the fact that you start out those first 2 weeks against Austin Peay and Virginia, and it looked like this defense was different. It looked like they were being very aggressive. The approach, looked like last year they were good. They were bend, don't break. You had a couple of games like that South Carolina game, and they didn't give up the numbers they did against South Carolina, but it was a little bit reminiscent of that game. A big game on the road, and just uncharacteristic of what we've seen the last 2 weeks out of them. But I would say if you could come and build something off of it, it was in the second half. You were able to hold Florida to a field goal and didn't let it pile on, and really kind of set the way up. And again, the offense had some penalties and some things that shot themselves in the foot, but you kind of did give them a chance to stay in the game. A couple of last drives there in the fourth quarter. So if you're going back home tonight, there is something you can take away and say, that's something we could build off going into UTSA, which they're going to need to do, because there's certainly not going to meet their goals of winning the SEC East. You're already behind the 8 ball now with an 0-1 start in league play. The East was a big topic of discussion for them, a big goal for them in the offseason. You got to win games like this. You're going to play in some tough environments coming up, and you can't have, particularly on the road, let the crowd get into it by letting a guy bust 60, 70-yard plays.
No more room for error for Tennessee this season if they want to make it to Atlanta. not necessarily completely off the table, but you really can't drop another SEC game and realistically make it to the SEC championship. You mentioned it was a little bit like the South Carolina game, had some of those feels. It was different in a lot of aspects, but kind of the emotions of the fan base kind of getting very deflated after the game and during the game felt very similar in kind of the fashion that went down. But that's a team that Tennessee's going to have to face really soon. 2 weeks from now, South Carolina will be in Neyland Stadium for that second SEC test of the year. It'll be really interesting to see how Tennessee rebounds against UTSA next weekend, and then against South Carolina, and then Texas A&M coming to town as well. So a home stretch for Tennessee against 3 pretty solid teams. UTSA definitely the weakest of the 3, but we'll see what their quarterback situation looks like. Could be improved from what we've seen from them so far this year. But we'll be there every step of the way covering them. Make sure you guys head over to VolReport.com for all of our coverage throughout the season. We'll be there all throughout this week talking to coaches and players and seeing how they kind of adapt to this new landscape of a season with that first loss coming here in the Swamp. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well to not miss any videos. Thank you for watching.